Hello everyone, this is Ponder on Weather. In this update, we're going to be talking about an August cold front that's going to bring cooler conditions and flash flooding along the way. So if you do like weather-related content, please subscribe to my channel as I will upload daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. So let's get right to it. Let's take a look at the overall hazard map this morning for August the 1st, and you can definitely see where that cold front may be right now. But down to the south, we're still dealing with those heat advisories, and some of these heat index values are going to be 105 plus range, and where the pink shaded area could be anywhere from 110 plus, ahead of that much needed cold front down for the south. But out ahead of it, the monsoon stays alive and well. Places like, we got flash flood watches in these green areas from New Mexico to Colorado to Utah to Nevada to all the way to Idaho, getting into Oregon, and yes, even Washington actually has a flash flood watch currently right now, as that monsoon flow will continue to push precipitation up their way. So as we extend the view and take a look at the overall water vapor imagery, this actually tells you the true depiction on where the cold front may be, because back behind it we've got drier air, and that's indicative of this orange shaded area. But out ahead of it, there's all that instability, and we've got some lightning showing up in the yellow shaded area this morning along that cold front, with some stronger storms dumping some heavier rains along with it. And you can see those rains extend all the way up into portions of the Pacific Northwest as well. So take a look at the dew points, and this is what I'm talking about. As that cold front taps into this environment, this is why some of the heat advisories are in place today, because these dew points, anytime you have temperatures, in the 60s, that's kind of sticky and muggy. But when you start hitting 70 plus range, that's considered oppressive, and that is just like mugginess, I mean, to your body. And as the sun comes out and as it heats up, and as it, the moisture content in this atmosphere is really high. I mean, these dew points are 75, even down to the south here in Louisiana, we're talking upper 70s, and portions in this pink shaded area approaching an 80-degree dew point. That is a soupy air mass. And when that cold front hits that environment, it's going to wring it out like a sponge. So these the latest precipitable water content values are approaching 2 inches per hour. Once this cold front hits that environment, the atmosphere has the capability of wringing out about 2 inches per hour in that type of environment. So it's not guaranteed it's going to rain, every single hour at your house for that much. It's just when it hits that environment, the steering currents, the upper level winds in summer are typically a lot lower. So once these storms kind of get going, it can rain a lot in a short amount of time in an isolated area. And so that is definitely the concern, as this cold front will slowly shift south as we go throughout the day. It's going to be dumping some heavier rain, especially as we go into the afternoon hours, as it taps into that 100-degree, 105, 110 heat index type of higher dew point environment. Man, it's going to really start wringing out the atmosphere with some very heavy rain along with it. So as we extend the view and take a look at some of the HRRR guidance of the next 18 hours of where some of the rain prospects may be along that cold front, you can definitely see this is where the line will show this morning with that boundary. But down to the south, as it starts bleeding down to the south, we could be seeing some heavier rain start entering Oklahoma. It'll eventually start entering portions of North Texas, probably as we go into the nighttime hours, early evening. I say it starts about 7 o'clock, say in North Texas, and it would kind of extend into the overnight hours as this pushes further south into central Texas, portions of Arkansas, northern Louisiana. And this boundary too could bring some gusty winds, some stronger storms along with it. And some of these along the Carolina coast actually could be severe, and some gusty winds along here, up here in upstate New York as well, getting into Vermont and New Hampshire areas. but the monsoon remains alive. So yes, you could be picking up some heavier rains, and those extend all the way into Utah, going into Idaho, where they just desperately need the rain out here. So we'll probably be looking at some heavier rains as we go throughout the day up here in Idaho. But down here to the south, that's where the cold front's going to be. Some of these could be some stronger storms. That's why the Storm Prediction Center has a marginal risk as it taps into this environment from Dallas to Shreveport to Jackson, all the way into Columbus area, all along the southeast where this boundary may be. Once it gets along the coast, it does have a little bit more greater instability to work with, and some of those could be a little bit stronger, probably severe at times. Dumping some, quarter-size hail potential, some definitely gusty winds of upward of 60 miles per hour is not out of the question. In around the Virginia Beach area, Raleigh, North Carolina, getting into Norfolk, as well as Chesapeake here. Some of these stronger storms could be approaching that 60-mile-per-hour wind gust range. But up here in the Northeast, yeah, that right along that boundary this afternoon going into the early evening hours, you could be seeing some of those gustier winds are going to be impacting those areas with the potential of some heavier rainfall along with it as well. So if we extend the view and go to that Tuesday time frame, this is over that 48 hours from today into tomorrow, and I'm taking a look at the overall. This is the HREF ensemble guidance. What this is it's a kind of a summary of some of the shorter range, high resolution models. So I like to use this at times to kind of give us a true depiction on what some of the short range, better high resolution guidance, but also not just one model, kind of a summary of all the models is too. So this will kind of give you an idea of where some of those heavier rains may fall as it taps into that environment. So you noticed where some of the heavier rains may be from Louisiana to the southern portions of Mississippi, Alabama, getting into Georgia. Those were the areas that had the higher dew points, right? That's where they had the higher, up in the upper 70s, approaching the 80 degrees. So it has a lot more, moisture in the atmosphere to wring out like a sponge as it taps into that environment. So that's why we're seeing some of those heavier rains. And then along the coast here too, this is going to be a concern. As the cold front will shift off into the Carolina coast, it tends to linger and it tends to stall. When you ever have stall fronts, you get those overrunning conditions, and then we could be looking at some flash flooding starting to set up as we start getting into that Tuesday time frame with that cold front just kind of lingering in the area. And then you heat up during the day, and then it rains, heavier in that environment. But yeah, some of the much needed rain extends all the way up into portions of Colorado and into Utah here, portions of Idaho as well, even getting into portions of Montana. Could be seeing some much needed rain for those next 2 days. But you can definitely see where the cold front, these are Monday temperatures around 4 o'clock. So you're talking peak heating typically of where the highest temperatures may be. So I mean, it's hard to find even 100-degree on this map besides the desert Southwest, because this is a bona fide cold front for August standards. And we're talking widespread 70s for much of the Ohio Valley, especially into the Northeast. And some of these are going to be hard pressed to even get above, get in the 70s. They're going to stay in the 60s all day. So that's almost going to feel like more like fall-like weather rather than August 2nd. But even into Dallas here, I mean, it's going to be hard pressed with the cloud cover and the kind of the rains prospects hanging around all day. We might not even get out of the get out of the 80s here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It could be the highest we get is potentially the upper 80s. So I mean, your average high this time of year is 97. So that would be a good 10-degree drop from the average, and especially where you're going to be hitting today, in the 101, 102 range. So that's almost a 15-degree drop from what you're going to be experiencing today. So that is definitely a pretty good cold front. And you can definitely see where the cold front may be with those lower temperatures extending all the way down into southeast Texas, getting into central Louisiana. I mean, yes, that is a true rare cold front making all the way down to the deep south. So as we go into that Tuesday time frame, yeah, there's the cold front. It's almost like incredible to see. I was like, that's really a cold front, yeah, draping over Houston on August 3rd. Yeah, that's definitely a cold front, and that's going to bring some much cooler conditions. You can definitely see behind it. You got a lot of drier air filtering in down behind it. So the water, the water, the dew point's lower. You just tend to dry out that environment, and you get not only that cooler north wind flowing behind it. So that's going to feel really nice. So, but ahead of it, you're going to have to be concerned with some flash flooding. Where the concern with this system is this front gets all the way down to the deep south, but then it just kind of loses momentum and stalls and just kind of lingers for much of the week. And so, yeah, we're talking some heavier rain over much of South Carolina, getting into North Carolina, especially along the coast as the monsoon flow remains alive and well, but it'll slowly start to shift a little bit further off into the east. So now we're talking, eastern portions of New Mexico getting some of the heavier rains, eastern portions of, Colorado getting into the heavier rains. As really some of the culprit has been very active into the Pacific with tropical systems and hurricanes. Right now we've got Hurricane Hilda out there, going to be on Tuesday. But if we zoom into the Pacific, it's a trifecta. I mean, we got 3 of them out there, actually. It's got Hilda, we got Tropical Depression 9. We also have another one going to be forming. All that really is going to do is just going to be adding to some of that moisture that's going to be feeding into this area, and that will help with the monsoon flow and some of the rains that are going to be impacting West Texas into New Mexico as we go deeper into the week. So it's been very active in the Pacific, but I do feel a lot of this activity that has been in the Pacific is going to be transferring over into the Atlantic side, especially as we go towards that second week and beyond in August. So I really do feel we're going to have to be watching the tropics more closely as we get, especially beyond that, like say August 10th time frame. But as we go into Wednesday, August the 4th, there's the cold front, there's the drape along the south. Like I mentioned, it really doesn't go anywhere. It kind of stalls. So you're talking heavier rains along the coastal communities from Corpus to Houston to New Orleans to Destin. If you got a vacation going on happening this week in Destin, it's not going to be pretty, guys. Got a lot of rain coming up in that area for Florida, and especially along the southeast coast into southeast Georgia, southeast Carolina, eastern portions of North Carolina. Especially this area is kind of the bullseye where I do feel that cold front it just kind of stall and create kind of a low pressure off the Gulf here, and just dump some heavier rains for much of the week. And as we extend the view into that Thursday time frame, yeah, there's the cold front. It starts backing up in Texas. It starts to more or less, you can actually see it transfers into a little bit more of a warm front. So as it backs up, it's going to be able to pull some of that moisture from the Gulf from some of those tropical systems, right? And that's going to be impacting some of the southern portions of Texas, or West Texas, getting into southern portions of New Mexico. But we also have another boundary that could be trying to impact the Pacific Northwest. So that's going to be some much needed rains entering Washington, entering Oregon, entering Idaho again, portions of Montana. So definitely some of the rains start to come back in that region. And if we look at that Friday outlook, yeah, there's the cold front, just really doesn't go anywhere, kind of lingers and stalls. So right along the coastal communities all week are going to be impacted with some of those heavier rains. The drier air keeps bleeding in from the north to the south. And then again, right along that boundary into the northeast, where you've really been wet for much of July. I think that just kind of continues for much of the week this week too, with just that above average rainfall just going to be still impacting for much of the northeast, as well as that more rain prospects trying to creep in along the coast where they definitely need it to help with those wildfires. And as we go into that Saturday time frame, kind of see the same thing. The front more or less kind of lingers and stalls out over or more or less fades over Texas, it's still prevalent out here into the boundary of here and into the southeast. So we're still dealing with some of those heavier rains, and those are going to be compounding all week long as we go into even next weekend. But you may ask yourself, hey, what's actually considered average temperature for this time of year? Predominantly, this is more or less the hottest time of the year. Some of this, this is a lot of the bigger cities in the United States. So some of these actual temperatures may be a little blurry for you, but yeah, you can see some of the orange shaded areas in the upper 70s to the low 80s this time of year. This is what you would consider average temperatures. Average temperatures for the desert Southwest are 105, 106, 107 range. That's considered just your daily average high this time of year. Much of the Texas is basically in the upper 90s this time of year, mid 90s, upper 90s. Along the southeast coast, low 90s to middle 90s in portions. Along the Ohio Valley, upper 80s. Start getting into the northeast in some of these areas. Your more or less average highs, especially as you get into Maine, will start getting impacting like to the upper 70s. So that's what average would mean. So going forward, if we look at some of the temperatures between now and the next 5 days, so this would be August 1st to August 6th time frame. Yeah, some of these areas in the south and southeast would be considered 1 to 5 to 7 degrees below average from one of those temperatures that I showed you. Up here in the Pacific Northwest, we're looking at that 5 to 10 degrees above average temperature. What you would normally experience this time of year. But the difference is once we go into that the next 5 days from August 6th to the August the 11th time frame, those cooler conditions with a lot of the rain showers with the cool front still kind of hanging around for the deep south still gives them near average to below average temperatures for much of the south and the southeast, as the ridge will start building over the top, but it also starts to creep more or less into the interior regions of the U.S. over the upper central plains. And this will eventually start to impact portions of the northeast as the ridge will start creeping eastward as we go through time. And that's why the Climate Prediction Center has highlighted that 6th to 10th time frame, keeping the below average temperatures alive and well for portions of the south, entering below average temperatures for much of the Pacific Northwest as that ridge kind of shifts over the upper central plains here, and then eventually starts shifting, more or less impacting the upper Ohio Valley into the northeast with some of those above average temperatures. And some of the rain prospects too, it keeps it alive and well where that cold front is probably going to be stalling for much of the week. The monsoon will start to dry out, at least in that second half, that from that 6th to 10th time frame. Still dealing with the heavier rains right now, but I do feel the monsoon will start coming to an end as we get towards that second week of August, as the more precipitation comes back for the Pacific Northwest, some of those much needed rains for them. So if you take a look at some of the guidance going forward for the next week time frame, where that cold front is going to stall for much of the week from Houston, especially as we start getting along into the Florida Panhandle, along the coast here, southeast coast, into the Carolina coast. Some of these could be double digits, upward to a foot of rain is not out of the question along the coastal communities. So that's the concern for flash flooding. There's the monsoon will continue to remain alive and well, at least for the first half of this week. Starts to dry out the following week, but then the rains do start to come back a little bit for the Pacific Northwest as it continues to remain active in this area from Minnesota to Wisconsin to Michigan, all of the Ohio Valley here into the northeast, with those sporadic, heavier, scattered, isolated showers almost on a daily basis. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video and definitely leave your comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.